Please rise for the arrival of the official party.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Good evening, brigade and distinguished guests. Tonight is my honor to introduce our Forrestal speaker, Admiral William H. McRaven, United States Navy, Commander, U.S. Special Operations Command. A U.S. Navy SEAL, he has commanded at every level within the Special Operations community, including assignments as Deputy Commanding General for Operations at JSOC, Commodore of Naval Special Warfare Group 1, Commander of SEAL Team 3, Task Group Commander in the U.S. Central Command Area of Responsibility, Task Unit Commander during Desert Storm and Desert Shield, Squadron Commander at Naval Special Warfare Development Group, and SEAL Platoon Commander at Underwater Demolition Team 21 and SEAL Team 4. Admiral McRaven is currently serving as the 9th Commander of United States Special Operations Command, headquartered at MacDill Air Force Base, Florida. The United States Special Operations Command ensures the readiness of joint special operations forces and conducts operations worldwide. Please help me give a warm welcome to Admiral William H. McRaven.
Well, thank you, Riley. Thanks for that fine introduction. And Mike Miller, I truly appreciate the invitation to speak tonight. And for the brigade out there, the pass in review was absolutely magnificent, and I was honored to be part of it. Thank you very, very much. Before I begin my prepared remarks, I wanted to show you a short video that really, I think, captures the essence of who we are as a Special Operations Force. The video highlights some of our unique tactics, techniques, and procedures. It shows how we have integrated women into the Special Operations Force, and most importantly, it demonstrates our language and cultural skills, which we worked so very hard to develop. So please roll the film.
He's getting away with the WMD! I got him! Damn, I missed him! Sarah, he's got the bump. You gotta fix it.
I got him, Carson. He's heading for the loop. Your plans are over.
Everyone, don't worry. Everything is boom. We stopped the terrorists.
I love that line. Bon, everything is bon. Well, I'm not actually going to talk about special operations tonight. And while I hope this doesn't become another Borisov lecture, I would like to focus my remarks on leadership, because that's really what this great institution is all about, developing Navy and Marine Corps officers. After 36 years in the service and having made every mistake in the book, I occasionally got a few things right, and I hope to offer something of value tonight. Karl von Clausewitz once said, "Everything in war is easy, but the easy things are difficult." Leadership is much the same. The principles of leadership are easy to learn, but the application of those principles can be daunting at times. They are daunting because the nature of leadership is all about human interaction, and nothing is more complex, nothing more frustrating, and nothing more humbling than trying to lead men and women in difficult undertakings. But when you get it right, when you are successful, nothing in the world is more gratifying. So tonight, I humbly offer some practical lessons of leadership that I have learned over the past 36 years. First and foremost, take care of your troops. Now this sounds simple enough, but what does it really mean? Many young officers mistakenly believe that taking care of your troops is all about their personal well-being and that like a good friend, you must shepherd them through the difficult times, protect them from too many outside influences, lift them up when the pressures of work and family become too burdensome. There is a time and a place for this kind of support, but that is not what good leadership demands. The sailors or Marines in your care do not want you to be their friend. They want you to be their officer. They expect the highest standards from you, and more importantly, they want you to expect the highest standards from them. They join the service to be part of something special. And if they are not held to a high standard, if their individual efforts are no more important, no more appreciated than the efforts of the slacker, then it will directly affect the morale of the unit. And nothing is more important to the success of a military unit than its morale. Taking care of your troops means building their morale by expecting the best from them and their fellow soldiers and sailors, airmen, and Marines. Douglas MacArthur once said, "The unfailing formula for production of morale is patriotism, self-respect, discipline, and self-confidence, joined with fair treatment and merited appreciation from without. It cannot be produced by pampering or coddling an army, and it is not necessarily destroyed by hardship, danger, or even calamity. It will wither quickly, however, if soldiers come to believe themselves the victims of indifference or injustice on the part of their government, or ignorance, personal ambition, or ineptitude on the part of their leaders. Learn to take care of your men by expecting the very best from them and giving your best in return. You must lead from the front. In wartime, that means exactly what it says. Get out in front. I was up on Capitol Hill several weeks ago testifying before the House Armed Services Committee. Joining me in the testimony was General Jim Mattis, the commander of the U.S. Central Command, and a Marine leader for over 40 years. During the hearing, freshman Congressman Duncan Hunter from California told the story of when Hunter, a Marine captain, was in Fallujah in the middle of a firefight when he looked down the street and saw a single light armored vehicle coming in his direction. Flying from the antenna was the flag of the division commander, Major General Mad Dog Mattis, call sign Chaos. Congressman Hunter related to the assembled lawmakers that seeing the general's flag, hearing the general's voice on the radio, and knowing that the general was risking his life to join his Marines, lifted the spirit and emboldened the ground force to fight even harder. Congressman Hunter, clearly moved by the moment, saluted General Mattis and said, "You, sir, will always be my commander." General Mattis returned the salute. If you are in combat, move to where the action is the hottest. If you are a surface warfare officer, make your way into the engine room a lot. Spend time with the sailors being hot and miserable and exhausted. If you are an aviator, spend time on the flight deck with the yellow shirts, learning to move the chains and push gas. If you're a submariner, stand the midwatch every chance you can. Whatever position you are in, find the toughest, most dangerous, shittiest job in the unit and go do it. Don't expect a lot of thanks in return. Your sailors and Marines are doing it every day. But I guarantee you, you will learn a lot about your troops, and they will learn a lot about your character as an officer. Lead from the front. Learn to fail. In the course of your career, you will fail, and you will likely fail often. It is failure that steels you for battle. And if you can't learn to fail, then pick yourself up, learn from your mistakes, and move on, then you will never be a great leader. When I was a young lieutenant, I was relieved from my SEAL platoon command, one of the best positions in the SEAL community. Many before me had been fired as well and chose to leave the Navy. I decided to stay and prove to others and to myself that I was a good officer and could learn from that downfall. Rudyard Kipling, the great British storyteller and poet, once wrote, "If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you but make allowances for their doubting too, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of the pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Kipling's words have stuck with me, and in the ensuing 30 years since I was fired, I have continued to make mistakes, some in combat. And in combat, some of those mistakes have cost lives, but I like to think that my leadership has saved more lives than it has cost. And in the end, I hope that all of us will be judged by our accomplishments as much as our failures. Learn to fail. Learn to take risks. You must take risks, both personal and professional. John Paul Jones once said, "It is true I must run great risk, but no gallant action was ever accomplished without danger." This doesn't mean you have to be cavalier with your troops' lives. You must understand the difference between calculated risk and foolhardy exuberance. Sometimes this understanding only comes with experience. Therefore, trust your experience or the experience of those who have sailed those waters before. However, while learning to take personal risks are essential for a good leader, I would offer that professional risks are the more difficult of the two. Taking a stand when you see a senior officer out of line is a professional risk. Telling the overbearing chief petty officer that his crudeness doesn't represent the qualities of today's Navy is a professional risk. Making the right decision when you know it may cost you your career is a professional risk. What you should know in each of these cases is that the senior officer, the chief, and your Navy leadership will likely all appreciate your personal and professional courage. And if they don't, and you end up on the street, give me a call. I will gladly serve with you. Learn to take risks. Don't compromise your integrity too often. The fact is, you will compromise your integrity. At some point, you will not stand up to the senior officer. You will not tell the chief to stand down, and you will not report a violation that you know needs reporting. Why? Because you are human. And sometimes the nature of self-preservation is too strong to overcome our sense of professional integrity. When that happens, it should make you sick to your stomach. You should question your moral compass, your parentage, your future as a naval officer, and your right to exist on this planet. And then you should understand that you are not perfect and hope and pray that it never happens again, but it will. And each time you should feel sick. When you stop feeling sick for compromising your integrity, then it's time to leave the Navy. Try not to compromise your integrity. Learn to follow. One of the most underrated aspects of leadership is learning to follow. In fact, all of your careers, you will be asked to follow someone. Even as a 4-star with 66,000 men under my command, I still report to the Secretary of Defense and the President. I also follow every bit of direction given to me by my command sergeant major, my daughter, and my wife. The strength of a good organization rests more on how well the officers follow the commander than how well they lead their own sailors and Marines. I have seen many a good command underachieve because someone in the wardroom thought the CO was an idiot and quietly worked to undermine his authority. I guarantee you that in the course of your career, you will work for leaders whom you don't like and don't respect. It will be easy to make fun of their idiosyncrasies, their foibles, their receding hairline, or their spouses. Be very careful in getting too smug, too opinionated, and too righteous. As long as the CO's actions are moral, legal, and ethical, then do everything you can to support the chain of command and stay away from rolling eyes, whisper campaigns, and junior officer scuttlebutt. The Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Caine Mutiny, is a fictional account of a World War II supply ship run by an eccentric CO who has a wardroom of reserve officers to contend with. Throughout the novel, the junior officers, all Ivy League men, have consistently criticized the CO behind his back and undermined his authority with the crew. During a storm one night, the JOs find reason to relieve the CO of his ship, and the novel rests on the courts-martial case that follows. The commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Queeg, is brought to the courtroom to defend his actions while in command, and the very clever JAG manages to make Queeg look every bit the fool. The junior officers who have incited the mutiny are sitting in the courtroom watching as the lawyer tears apart the CO, making it clear he didn't have the qualities to be a good commanding officer and therefore justifying the junior officer's actions. But as the movie draws to a close and Queeg has been found incompetent and relieved of his command, that same lawyer begins to realize he has made a terrible mistake. After drinking too much at the post-trial party, he turns to his other junior officers and he says, "While I was studying law, and old Kiefer here was writing his play for the Theater Guild, and Willie here was playing on the fields of Princeton, all that time, these birds we call regular officers, these stuffy, stupid Prussians in the Navy and the Army, were manning the guns. Old Queeg was standing guard on this fat, dumb, and happy country of ours. We figured only fools go into the armed services. Bad pay, no millionaire future, and you can't call your mind or your body your own." Yes, even Queeg, poor, sad guy, is not sad at all, fellows. A lot of them are sharper boys than us. Don't kid yourselves. They are the best men I've ever seen. You can't be good in the Army or the Navy unless you're goddamn good. Learn to follow. Protect the institution. This may be the toughest leadership challenge you will ever face, and it will be the most distasteful decision you will ever make. There will come a time when an individual in your command makes a mistake. They will be a good man or a good woman who was doing the best they could under the circumstances, which will make your decision all that more difficult. It will be a mistake of omission vice commission, but the mistake will rise to the point of notoriety where you must decide between compassion for the sailor and his family or protecting the honor of the institution. You will convince yourself that taking care of the sailor is the right thing to do. It's about your integrity, standing up for the troops, taking those personal risks, speaking truth to power, all the things I just told you to do, and all of them will be easier than protecting the institution. But here's what you must remember. It's never about one man or one woman. It's about all the men and women under your charge. It's about the honor and legacy of the unit which you command, because all of those legacies were written in blood. It's all about those who went before you and those who will follow you. When I was in command of the Joint Special Operations Command, we attempted a rescue of a British woman in Konar province of northern Afghanistan. The mission went terribly wrong, and reports from the ground force stated that the hostage had been killed by the insurgents during the rescue. 72 hours later, after we had notified the President of the United States and the British Prime Minister, I learned that in fact we, the SEALs, had inadvertently killed the hostage, which by itself would have been bad enough, but what was more disturbing was that 3 of the operators on the ground knew it and chose to keep the fact from me and other leaders. But during the investigation, it became clear that all 3 SEALs who withheld the information did so not to protect themselves, but because they knew they had let their fellow warriors down. These were good men, SEALs who had performed magnificently in hundreds of previous operations, men whose courage and commitment to the nation was unquestionable. But they were also men who had made a mistake and caused the honor of the command, the Navy, and the nation to be at risk. I deliberated long and hard, and part of me wanted desperately just to chew their ass and let them go back to work. Instead, I held an unprecedented mess deck admiral's mast. With a command in full service dress blues, I pulled 2 of their SEAL Tridents, removed 2 of them from the team, and sent 1 of them to the fleet. They were all good men, but the honor, and I believe the survival of the team, was at risk. As a result, we protected that honor and the reputation of the team. The team continued to operate at a very high level and went on to earn greater and greater accolades for their work around the world. Sometimes you have to sacrifice good men and women for the honor of the institution. It should never, ever be easy. Enjoy your work and never let the troops see you unhappy. You will find during your career that the work is tough. If you let it grind you down, it will. If you let the troops see you beaten and depressed and unmotivated, then they will follow suit, and before long, your unit will be a reflection of the leader. But you should know that nothing great was ever accomplished by men too serious to laugh. The finest naval officers I have ever worked for had the best sense of humor, and they used that humor to motivate, to teach, to lead, to instill confidence, particularly at times when the situations were most dire. When I was embarked on the USS Okinawa during Desert Shield, the Commodore of the amphibious squadron was a Navy captain named Mike Quamatis. He had been a helo pilot during Vietnam and was one of the finest officers I've ever worked for. However, after 6 months of workups and 6 months underway time in the Persian Gulf, the relationship between the officers of the amphibious squadron and the Marine Expeditionary Unit had become somewhat strained. We had been sent to Subic Bay for a short refit period, and then we were headed right back to the Gulf for what was to be Desert Storm. As it happened, we sailed into Subic on the day of the Marine Corps birthday and promptly pulled together a birthday celebration. The Marines baked a large three-layer dark chocolate extravaganza, and during the ceremony it was rolled out to be cut by the Marine Colonel and the Commodore. The Colonel was core to the bone, professional, serious, very disciplined. The Colonel briefly recited the history of the Corps and then turned the ceremony over to the Commodore. You could feel the strain in the room. No amount of cake was going to bring the wardroom together. The Commodore, dressed in choker whites, began very seriously. He talked about legendary Marines like Chesty Puller and John Basilone. He congratulated the Marines on their birthday and then, without warning, plunged himself face first into the large three-layer chocolate cake. The Marine Colonel was stunned, but realized that there was only one thing he could do, and that was to follow suit. In one evening, with one simple but comical gesture, the wardroom of the USS Okinawa and the 15th MEU came together. We went on to spend the next 8 months deployed, and the Navy Marine Corps team was the finest I have ever served with. Enjoy your work and find time every day to laugh, particularly when the times are the toughest. It will be good for you, and it will be great for your sailors and Marines. One final story. Many years ago, I was a young lieutenant commander. The commander-in-chief of the Pacific Fleet, Admiral Archie Clemens, came to visit Coronado, California. I was assigned as the Admiral's escort for the day. Needless to say, I was a bit in awe of Cinque Pac Fleet. But as the day went on, I began to get more comfortable in his presence. He told me about his career, 35 years in the Navy at the time. He had been deployed consistently and constantly over those years. He had missed anniversaries, birthdays, and countless special events. The stress on his family had at times been quite difficult. I watched him as he talked, and I could see the nostalgia fill his eyes. Suddenly, without thinking, I asked, "Sir, any regrets?" Without hesitation, he looked me in the eye, smiled, and said, "Not a one, not a one." I have now eclipsed Admiral Clements' time in the Navy, having served almost 36 years. And I can tell you, whether you serve 4 years or 40 years, you will never, ever regret your decision to have joined the Navy or the Marines. You will serve beside the finest men and women in America. You will be challenged every day. You will fail. You will succeed. You will grow. You will have adventures to fill 10 lifetimes and stories that your friends from home will never be able to understand. Your children and their children will be proud of you. And when you pass from this earth, the nation that you so nobly served will honor you for your duty. Your only regret will be that you could not have served longer. May God bless you. May God bless America. And may we always have the privilege to serve her. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please, take seats. Okay, so I know that Jenny has seated the audience with questions. So all of you people that were told to ask questions, please stand up. Come on, stand up. Where's your integrity? I just told you. Okay, so you don't get to ask any questions. No, fire